Hello everyone, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Today, that is on 18th February, India is set to sign an FTA with its partner, that is United Arab Emirates. In this discussion, we will see what is FTA, what are the effects, of FTA, and also will it be advantageous or disadvantageous to India. Okay, at the end of the discussion you will be able to answer all these questions. Let's begin. See, here India is set to sign a trade pact on February 18th. This is the context in which we are discussing India UAE FTA, that is an issue of free trade agreement. FTA stands for Free Trade Agreement. UAE and India sign a trade investment deal on Friday via virtual summit. This is the news. Now let's see what is an FTA, Free Trade Agreement. FTA stands for Free Trade Agreement. FTA is an engagement between two or more countries where the countries agree on certain obligations that are related to goods and services, also protections for investors and IPR, that is intellectual property rights. What you need to know is free trade agreement will encompass goods, services, protection for investors and also IPR. These are the four dimensions that an FTA would have. Okay, FTA will include all these four dimensions. In your prelims examination, you might be asked a question where FTA includes goods and services only. Goods and services only. Okay, this can be a statement, and it is an extreme statement. It involves protection to investors and also intellectual property rights. So you can consider this statement as incorrect. Okay, this is how questions in preliminary examination are asked. Let's see what happens if there is an FTA. What happens if a country signs an FTA with the other country? It enhances the trade and boosts the export as there exists a duty-free trade. What happens if there is an FTA is, as the name itself suggests, it is a free trade agreement. When it comes to the trade barriers, we have two kinds of trade barriers, that is tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. FTA agreement will reduce or will eliminate this tariff and non-tariff barriers. If there are no tariff and non-tariff barriers, then the exports would increase. If the export increases, then it creates wealth. And there is an increase in foreign exchange. If the wealth is created, then there will be an investment. This investment drives employment. Again, this employment, there will be increase in productivity. Productivity will again boost the export. Okay, this works as a vicious cycle, a cycle in which increasing in the export will cause the growth in economy and also causes development, that is investment in education and also health, that we call it as human resource development or human capital development. These are the examples of advantages of increase in exports. If there is a question, impact of increasing in the export in the economy, you can include all these things. Okay, you can include all these things. FTAs are compatible with WTO rules. World Trade Organization is the rule making organization when it comes to the international trade, and these FTAs are compatible with the WTO rules. Let's see as the UAE is in news, we will have to know about some mapping terms when it comes to geography, because questions on maps are being asked extensively every year in UPSC prelims. Because of that, we will see some maps. See, this is where the UAE is. This is UAE. Okay, here this is Saudi Arabia, Yemen, this is Oman, you have Iran here, you have Iraq, Saudi, Egypt, Sudan, and remember Red Sea and Persian Gulf. These are the water bodies that you need to know. You should be aware of their location. One is Red Sea and the other one is Persian Gulf. So, UAE shares borders with Persian Gulf. This becomes a correct statement. UAE shares borders with Persian Gulf. And look at the countries with which UAE shares border. One is Saudi Arabia and the other one is Oman. Okay, UAE does not have borders with Iran, does not have borders with, this is Qatar. Okay, UAE shares borders with Saudi Arabia and Oman. In place of Oman, UPSC might give you Yemen and get confused. You will get confused. Okay, remember it is Oman. What are the things that we need to know when it comes to this particular map? One is know the location of Persian Gulf. Qatar, the capital is Doha. Okay, you should be aware of this. When it comes to United Arab Emirates, you should know the location of Abu Dhabi. It's a famous city. Also Dubai. Okay, and you should know one more thing, that the Tropic of Cancer passes through UAE. Tropic of Cancer passes through UAE. Okay, these are the things that you need to know from this point of view. And the one more thing is Strait of Hormuz. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, you should know where the Strait of Hormuz is. This strait is Bab el Mandeb. This is the port, Bab el Mandeb. Do not get confused with Strait of Hormuz and Bab el Mandeb. Okay. India and FTA. Now let's come back to the economic angle. Let's discuss the issue of FTAs, the history of FTAs in India. India recently decided not to join RCEP, which is called as RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is a free trade agreement between 10 ASEAN countries and also 5 other countries. 5 other countries are China, Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand. Okay, these are the 5 countries with which India, there were negotiations from 2019, there were negotiations on RCEP, but India decided not to join RCEP. Next one, India has free trade agreement with ASEAN, 10 countries of ASEAN, Japan, South Korea and also other almost 45 countries. These are the countries, 45 countries with which India has free trade agreements, and now UAE has been added to the list. India has preferential trade agreement with China. India has preferential trade agreement with China. And advantages of FTA, one of the major advantage that you can write as an example is high import duty boosted the automobile sector in India, and this helped the engagement in global value chain. For example, we have indigenous industries like Tata and Mahindra. Tata and Mahindra are indigenous automobile industries. These industries could develop because India has had high import duty on automobile imports. Even now you can see Tesla, which is trying to enter Indian market, is almost experiencing 100% import duty. That is, for example, if the Tesla car costs 40 lakh abroad, when it is imported it is costing 80 lakh here. Okay, almost 100% import duty. Now let's see India's trade agreements, trade partners. What are the countries with which India has FTAs? One is ASEAN, South Asian Free Trade Agreement, that is also abbreviated as SAFTA, India Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, Indo Pacific Free Trade Agreement, India Mercosur Preferential Trade Agreement is with South American countries, ASEAN India Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, India Singapore, India Malaysia, Indo Korea and Indo Japan. Along with this, India has FTAs and preferential trade agreements with almost 45 countries. And now let's come back to the issue of FTA with UAE, that is United Arab Emirates. UAE is India's third largest trading partner. UAE is India's third largest trading partner. Important fact you need to remember. Bilateral trade stood at almost $52.76 billion in 2021 and 22. UAE is India's second largest export destination after USA, which means USA is the first largest export destination and UAE is the second largest export destination. It is because UAE has almost 3.5 million Indians. So Indian diaspora is huge in UAE. UAE has a vision, that is Vision 2021, in order to diversify its investment and its economy from crude oil. You all know UAE, being a Middle East country, has rich resources of crude oil, rich resources in crude oil. As the entire world is talking about climate change and moving towards renewable fuels and also something called as biofuels, UAE is facing the threat to its economy. So now UAE has come up with a Vision 2021 with which it wants to diversify its economy and build strong relations with other countries so that it can boost its economy. This is the objective of Vision 2021. Market access. Okay, UAE is a Middle East country and UAE has free trade agreements and preferential trade agreements with Gulf Cooperation Council countries. For example, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Yemen, Oman, Kuwait. Okay, these are the countries with which UAE has good relations with. Okay, and if India cracks a free trade agreement with UAE, then India can access to some extent all these markets. Along with this, India will also get a gateway to access the markets of Northern Africa, including Egypt. India will get access to the markets of Northern Africa. Now let's see, why is India stressing so much on its exports? Okay, why is India stressing so much on its exports? First thing is, India is aiming to achieve $400 billion of merchandise exports. Okay, India is aiming to achieve $400 billion of merchandise exports and also $1 trillion of export by 2030. This is the target that India is aiming for. India is aiming for this particular target of achieving $1 trillion of exports by 2030. Okay, through these FTAs, we have seen India has FTAs with almost 45 countries. Through these FTAs and the recent one, that is UAE, India is moving one step ahead of achieving such a great achievement when it comes to the exports. Now let's see what are the negative impacts. Till now we have seen what FTA is and also we have discussed the advantages of the FTAs and also how FTAs have been designed when it comes to India. India has FTAs with almost 45 countries and we have seen few important things among them. Now let's discuss what are the negative impacts. The first one, domestic industries can lose out to cheaper and more superior goods. One of the best example to this is, you can all remember there was a telecom device manufacturing company called Micromax and also Lava. These were indigenous telecom device or mobile phone manufacturers and these companies couldn't compete with well-grown companies like Apple and Samsung. Now you can see we do not have any traces of Micromax and Lava when it comes to the device manufacturing. These faced heavy losses because of the FTAs and reduction in import duty to these big companies. Okay. Second one, this can lead to loss of employment. Micromax and Lava faced losses and they closed down their businesses. This led to unemployment. If the environmental protection laws are not adequately placed, then natural resources can be depleted or degraded by these multinational companies. This is one more negative impact on environment. The last one, intellectual property theft is common in countries which do not have strong laws to protect patents and processes. This is how you can see, in the absence of environmental laws and also IPR protection, such FTAs would be detrimental to the economy and also to the natural resources. India has a bad experience with its FTAs. India's experience with FTAs has not been the best, which means it has been bad, because imports have outperformed exports in India, leading to a widening trade deficit. What has happened in India is India has emerged as a net importer because India has been importing goods from other countries, because India has more FTAs and FTAs demand reduction in import duty, and when the import duty is reduced, indigenous manufacturing is disincentivized and there will be no indigenous manufacturing. This is what has happened, and in the present context, India's FTA with UAE is set to boost its exports. Let's discuss the question now. What are FTAs? Comment on the effect of FTAs on Indian economy and employment. As I always tell you, divide the question into two parts. First question, define FTAs. We have defined FTAs in the earlier part of the video. You can just have a look and you will get to know what FTAs are. Second one, comment on the effect of FTAs on Indian economy and employment. When it comes to the effect of Indian economy, the question demands you to discuss the positive impacts and also the negative impacts. Positive impacts we have seen, we have also seen the negative impacts on the economy. And when it comes to employment, we have discussed the issue of Micromax mobile company and also Lava mobiles, and how these businesses were affected and which led to unemployment. You can even tell as a positive measure due to FTAs, and there will be investor protection. We have discussed investor protection and also IPO protection are a part of FTAs. Because there is investor protection, it boosts the investor sentiment, and because of that you can have increase in FDI. Increase in FDI leads to creation of employment. If there is employment, there is income, and if there is income, you will have demand, and this demand drives the employment and the investment again. This becomes a cycle. We have discussed this also, and this is the impact of FTAs on Indian economy and also employment. Okay, I hope you have liked the video. For more such enriching content, please subscribe to Legacy IAS Academy. Have a nice day. Thank you.